Hey guys, I'm Lauren Conlin from Red Carpet Rendezvous Podcast, and you're listening to DNC Radio. And don't forget to subscribe to @DNC Digital.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy D from DNC Digital, back with another episode of DNC Radio. Today's guest is Lauren Conlin. Lauren Conlin is the host of Red Carpet Rendezvous. It is a top 10 podcast on the performing arts category, and her Oscar coverage actually got her featured on the homepage for Apple Podcasts for Oscar Buzz. Ms. Conlin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. We've been following each other on Instagram for a while. I honestly don't know how we met through Instagram, but I think it had something to do with each other's posts. But you are the host of Red Carpet Rendezvous. For everybody that doesn't know, Red Carpet Rendezvous, you go around New York covering all the premieres for plays and movies and TV shows. Is that correct?
Yeah, I try to. It's been pretty interesting the last couple of weeks, or the last, 5.5 weeks to be exact, with the pandemic happening, because there's been no red carpets. But yes, that was the premise of the podcast.
Yeah, and how are you doing during this pandemic? Everything is okay with you and your family?
Yeah, my family, we're good. You know, we live in Manhattan, which clearly, was like one of the biggest death traps for COVID-19. So we fled to my hometown of New Hampshire. So we've been here since March 16th, which is really great because I have like 2 young kids and they get to go outside. But I'm like everybody else. Some days I'm like, this is fine. And other days I'm like, what is this hell that we are living in?
Exactly. You're on your third bottle of wine and it's only 11:30 in the morning.
Oh, I mean, I had to move on from wine because it completely lost its taste. I'm on to tequila at this point, but
nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So, let's talk about the beginning. Where exactly did you grow up? Because I couldn't find that on.
Yeah, no, I grew up in New Hampshire, in Bedford, New Hampshire. It's a pretty small town. Most people have heard of Manchester. And for people that have heard of Manchester, it's really gross right now. It's like one of the top opioid capitals, I guess, in the United States. But when I was growing up here, it wasn't like that at all. And Bedford is right outside of Manchester, which is a lot nicer. But yeah, I went to high school here, and then I went to college in New York City at Marymount. So I moved there when I was 18.
Marymount Manhattan College, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
exactly.
what did you before we go into after high school, we need to address you were junior Miss New Hampshire and junior Miss New England. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's so funny. I was when I was younger. Yeah.
And what was your talent when you had to do that part?
I sang when I was in the pageants. It's actually really funny.
Is that the same video that you put on Instagram that you sang Christina Aguilera?
No, definitely not. That's so funny that that you bring that up. But no, I remember for the pageant, I sang a super inappropriate song. I sang "Memory" from Cats. And if there's any theater fans out there, they're probably like, why would a 14-year-old girl sing that song? And the answer is, I have no idea.
And what was the event that you sang the Christina Aguilera?
Oh my gosh, that was just like a high school talent show because we thought we were like hot shit. And I know, it's so embarrassing. I had to like show the world that I literally thought I don't know what was wrong with me. I was so confident. I thought I was the next like Britney or Christina. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so bad. And I thought I was so good. So.
But as long as you have the self-confidence, that's all that matters.
Oh, I did. And I don't know why. I don't know why anyone told me to sit down, but.
So what did you study at Marymount Manhattan College?
So I was a theater major, a musical theater major, for a year and a half. And I kind of decided that, it really wasn't for me halfway through. And then I switched my major to communication arts. So, yeah, I'm glad I switched just because there's a lot of opportunity in New York, with communications. And, there's lots of huge television stations and it's just like the media capital of the world besides LA.
So did you go into college thinking that the end game was going to be an actress or a theater performer?
Yeah, I did. I was a big fish in a small pond in New Hampshire, and then I got to New York, and it was completely cutthroat. And I was always, a singer or I was an actress, I guess, that could kind of sing and kind of dance. And in New York, if you want to make it to Broadway, you have to be a dancer who can really sing. I mean, in my opinion. And I wasn't willing to, I guess, make the sacrifice to train super hard. I don't really like dancing that much. I always just kind of did it, so I could be on stage and get certain parts. And in New Hampshire, it was just a lot easier. There was less competition. So, yeah.
So being from New Hampshire, you say you're from a small town. Did the big city feel of being an actress or being on Broadway, was that what originally attracted you to that profession?
Yeah, I really did love performing. It was just a huge passion of mine, and I miss it sometimes, but yeah, it's kind of what drew me to the city. And then I realized that it's really not that glamorous, that most actors are out of work 70% of the time, or they're waiting tables. And I'm very type A, so I needed something that was a bit more stable. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing this now, but there was a period of time where I was not in this profession at all. And I did have a more stable job. So that was better for me at the time.
Yeah, I can relate. Everybody who graduated high school with me knew I wanted to be an actor so bad, and
Oh,
it
wow.
it just changed, and it's funny that I fell into interviewing, and it's a different
Yeah.
change, but it's a lot of fun. And so before we get into your Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast, um,
Hmm.
let's talk about New York. Let's talk about how, Frank Sinatra said, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But it is true. For anybody who hasn't been or worked in New York, talk about how competitive New York can be for any profession.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's like the media capital of the world. It's that, besides LA, it's the acting capital of the world, especially for stage because it's Broadway. So in that sense, it's very, very competitive. And then in the sense of making money and needing to survive there, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that you can live in Manhattan and survive on a waitressing a few days a week or whatever it is. My first job out of college, I think, gosh, I was making maybe $27,000 a year probably. And for New York City, I mean, that's
No,
like
that's not
poverty
gonna
level
cut
in
it.
New York City. I saw a meme the other day where it's like somebody getting their stimulus check that for $1,000 in Alabama, and it was like Carlton Banks, doing his dance, and it's like someone getting their stimulus check in New York City for $1,000, and it was like the sad face with the tear because it's like in New York City, it's like $1,000 lasts you like
It's like
yeah.
$100. That's
No, it's
nothing.
crazy. I had a lot of roommates. I had at one point when I was making that money, I had to babysit on the side, and I also worked at a restaurant. So I had three jobs at one point just so I could pay my rent to live in Manhattan. And I actually, looking back, I don't remember thinking that it was that bad because I was 20 years old, and you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like that's all you know.
Yeah, that's all you have too. This is before you
Yeah.
had other people in your life that you needed to devote time to. Um,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. I just, yeah, I had to worry about myself, my rent. And working at a restaurant, it was kind of nice because they fed me a lot there. And that sounds like
exactly.
it's not a huge deal, but like to a 20-year-old that's like,
People don't know the
kind of sick.
concept of dead food and how amazing that is.
Exactly, exactly.
Talk about your time interning at CBS News. Who did you grab
So,
coffee for? Who did you get coffee for?
well, so that's really funny. It's actually, again, it brings me back to New York. I was working at a restaurant and there was an anchor named Ernie Anastas. He's a big,
Hey,
well-known New
I
York
remember
City.
Ernie Anastas. He
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
do WPIX, isn't that correct?
yeah,
It was
yes.
on
So,
it was I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
It was you took me back to my childhood because him and this is how you know I was a Jersey boy. Him
yeah,
and Brenda Blackman were the top anchors on
yes,
UPN 9 News. Is that correct?
yes. You were
Yeah.
100% right. And he's definitely hopped around because I think, where was I? Yes, I was working at this restaurant, and he used to come in there a lot, and he was working at CBS. And I said to him, I really think that I want to work in a newsroom and I want to do broadcasting and communications. And he said, "Oh, you should come intern." And I told him about my theater background. So he was so kind, if you can believe this. He brought my resume to one of the executive producers that worked in the entertainment field. So I got to work under Jennifer Lopez's sister, Linda Lopez, who nobody's heard of at all. But I
She did.
remember,
I want to say
yeah,
that she did entertainment news for somebody, didn't she?
yeah, she did it for CBS.
Yeah.
So I got to work right underneath her when I was an intern. And I remember my first day on the job, she's like, "Oh, you're going to love this." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "I have an interview, a sit down with Shakira today. So I'd love for you to come." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy." And this was before like smartphones. So I know I'm aging myself, but like I just think about how cool and how badass I could have been if I was like 19 and taking pictures of Shakira. Like that would have been, I would have been like such a hero, but but yeah, it was a great experience, and I feel super lucky to have been there.
And then, well, from then on, so was it all of those experiences that said, you know what, I might be able to do this, the interviewing and covering and
Well,
get in touch with media people?
yeah, so this is actually kind of sad, but I actually took a really, really long break from that. I'm going to tell you, I took a 14-year break from interviewing after I interned at CBS. Then the next summer, I interned at Fox, and then when it was time to get a job, the pay there was very similar at local stations. It was very similar to what it is, I guess, in the acting and the waitressing, and it just, and the hours, like, a lot of people like that start as PAs, production assistants and stuff, like they don't even get insurance. They just get paid hourly, and the hours are crazy. Like you'd have to start some hours. They were asking me like, "Oh, can you work Wednesday, Friday and Sunday and Monday, but can you do like 3 a.m. to, 12 p.m. or something?" And I was like, "What? This is so crazy." So I decided to not pursue news and communications and just get a job in marketing for a while.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you did Equinity and you did was it
yeah,
Inbox Direct and
yep,
Clash Media? I'm reading all this stuff, and so let's talk about that for
yeah.
a second. Did it help at all to see how you can market something toward a certain audience with your experience?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was helpful because, I like to think that I catch on quickly. So my specialty, I started, I was an account manager and I was doing email marketing. So that was really cool. And, I did a lot of sales stuff too. So I wasn't shy because I had a theater background, and it's almost like a performance. I've heard of a lot of VP of sales that send their sales guys to theater classes and improv classes just to help them sell. So, and I also, if I didn't do that, I actually met my husband at Clash Media. He was the director of sales and I was his account manager. So I would say that it was a success.
It was definitely a success. Now you have two beautiful
Yeah,
children.
yeah. Oh, thanks.
That little girl it's like your smile plastered on a little girl's
Isn't
face.
that crazy? Yeah, she is super extra. But thank you.
No, yeah, of course. So now you are the host of Red Carpet Rendezvous, and it
Yeah,
just started. It just started last year.
yeah,
You were telling me that you wanted to start this podcast, and then you did, and
yeah.
now it's gotten so much notoriety. It's gotten so
Thank
much
you.
good publicity, and so how does that success feel to you in such a short amount of time?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really feel like success. I mean, I think you know how it is. You're always hustling. And like you said,
Right.
I was top 10 for like 4 or 5 weeks. And like now I'm not, just because, things change. The algorithm changes with Apple, with all the podcast outlets on where they show people, where to see what's new, what's hot, all this stuff. And it's just hard to get back in there because there's like literally millions of podcasts. And I never really wanted to, I guess, do this, or I guess have a podcast. It sort of just popped into my head because I wanted to be an entertainment correspondent. And I wanted to do it myself. I had my kids, so I didn't really, I mean, what happened was I stopped working after I had my kids, and my husband said to me, "Why don't you do something that you're really passionate about? You always wanted to do entertainment corresponding and media. You just gave it up, because of the money, but And, I'm just going to be real with you. It's nice to have my husband who, all the pressure's not on me to make the money. As shitty as that might sound to some people, but that was the reality of it. And so I ended up working with a reporter in New York City last year. So he was an entertainment reporter and I was his producer. And sometimes I would do interviews for him and I would set things up, and I started to sort of get back into things. And then I said to him one day, do you mind if I maybe start a podcast to kind of try to do this myself? And he was very supportive. And so I kind of took my contacts from when I was producing for him, and I still do stuff for him right now as well. We're still friends and I still do things for him. And he shares different events with me and makes intros, and it's great. And it's so cliche, but it really is all about who you know, because I had this small podcast I started myself, and I was getting on these really big red carpets, and I was like, what am I even doing here? I don't even understand how this is happening. And I'm interviewing these people. But it was all because it's like fake it till you make it. Once you have one good interview and people see that, then it's like, oh, they interviewed so-and-so. They could do this, they could do that. And it's also about it's a game. You can't, you need to make nice with people, and with public relations people and companies, you can't badmouth their clients. You can't, you got to stay away from
anything. When you're in the public eye and you're covering stuff, you can't, you have to play nice. You have to know how to shake a hand and how to look somebody in the eye. And I know the deal. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So especially if they listen to the podcast, as much as you want to say what really happened on the red carpet, there were things that I don't even know. I had thrown something in about The Irishman. I was on the red carpet for that, but I wasn't doing it for the podcast. I was working for this one reporter. It was a huge red carpet, and there was an actress there, a really well-known actress, and she was so hammered, and she must have been on pills or something, but it was the most ridiculous display I've ever seen, and her rep got her through that carpet so fast that most people didn't see, but I saw, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have only gotten this on film, I probably could have sold it to Associated Press. I probably could have sold it to somebody, but I didn't, because nobody would hire me again to do anything.
Yeah, because it would exactly be that. You'd be viral for a second, but then you'd be the girl who used such a bad state of somebody to.
Exactly. And I want people to trust me, and I want to be more that I don't want to be someone that reports on gossip. I want to be somebody that reports seriously on film in a fun way, or TV in a fun way.
Yeah, so about that, how do you get through? Because I noticed that in red carpets, it's somebody standing behind them and kind of tapping them on the shoulder, like, okay, next interview. How do you timing does involve, when you're preparing, do you prepare 2 or 3 questions that you really want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of about that, and it's sort of not, because yes, most big actors have their PR rep and they need to get through every single outlet, and they don't have to talk to you, especially me being such a small outlet that people generally haven't heard of. They are totally okay to skip over me and not feel bad, because and here's the other thing, they place you on the carpet sort of in order of importance. So they'll put Entertainment Tonight, E!, Access Hollywood, all of those guys up front, then the local outlets, and then people like me, people like the Nocturnal. Actually, the Nocturnal gets pretty far ahead, but and just people that are writers, I guess. But yeah, I usually kind of look at who's coming to the event, what the event is, and what I guess these actors are trying to promote, so I can tie everything in together. So if I have a personal tidbit about the actor, I can throw that in after I ask them, why should people watch the show that we're in? Why should we tune in? What's unique about your character, or something like that? And then I can sort of get personal. But I kind of treat it like a 1-minute talk show, if you will.
Yeah, you definitely make it fun for people.
Yeah, I try.
So exactly what people ask me, I've had the pleasure and the honor of interviewing some pretty, big people and some really cool people. Funny story, the only person that I got starstruck with was Townsend Coleman. He played the voice of Michelangelo in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh my gosh, you're so
Yeah,
funny. You're such a nerd. I love that.
yeah, no, that was the one that he said yes, and I'm like, holy crap. And he's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, but you have no idea who you were to me, when I was a kid. So is there any, how do you, because you're a very professional woman, but at the same time, like, this is some fun stuff. Like, how do you
Yeah.
play it cool when it comes to interviewing these huge names?
I mean, I think that there's only a select few of them that I actually truly, I shouldn't say this, but like, I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't want to say care about, but there's a handful of actors that I really care about. And the other, group of them I respect, and I watch them in movies and it's very cool. But I think you just sort of get past that. I think, it's especially you need to play it cool because you don't really have a choice. They're not going to talk to a bumbling idiot. So,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, like, and I would say it was difficult to keep it together for Alexander Skarsgård. I play back that
I
footage
was
and
just about to ask you that.
yeah, like
If it was either Alexander Skarsgård or Carrie Elways.
oh, so Carrie, like I really like him, but not on the level of Skarsgård. Like I play back that footage and I was so giggly. I wanted to slap myself in the face. I wanted to kick my own ass for that. Like literally, I was like, can I kick my ass for that? Because I'm not really like that. And so it was like funny to play the footage back and hear myself giggle and just like touch my hair and just be such a nerd that I was like, oh my gosh, but it could have been worse. So
So you definitely did have some interviews with some handsome men that had you giggly and blushing. But was there any interview that you had that was just somebody you admired professionally so much that you just like, wow, I'm getting this opportunity to interview this person and I can't believe it, but now I have to have my game face on.
yeah, actually, it's very random and a lot of people might not know him, but I have been a huge fan of Mandy Patinkin since I was little. Um, I don't know if do you watch Homeland?
Very few times though.
Well, he's Saul on Homeland, but more over. Oh, you know what? You'll know Princess Bride. He's Inigo Montoya. Everybody knows that.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
Mandy Patinkin. But he's a huge Broadway star, and an old film star. But he's been a huge, just someone that I've looked up to since I was younger. I love his voice. I used to always tell my husband, like, I want you to hire him to sing at my 40th birthday one day because he's so amazing. But his wife was actually in an off-Broadway play, and I was hired to just do to be the house crew that night and just interview people on what they thought about the play and what they were looking forward to the most. And he was there. And the PR rep that hired me was like, go run, get a quote from Mandy. And I'm like, Mandy? And I turn around and I was like, oh my gosh, no problem. So I went up to him. He was very cool, very professional. I didn't tell him I was a fan or anything just because it just was so quick. But he was, as soon as we were done, he walked away. So there was really no time to even say, thank you, I'm a big fan. He just kind of moved along. So he definitely, I wouldn't say he was cold, but he was just, all business.
All business,
So
all
and
business. Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, all business.
Talk about George Shapiro. You were blushing with that guy too. You were saying that he was the cutest man
Well,
alive.
he was, and it's actually so funny. George Shapiro, I hadn't heard too much about him because I wasn't a huge Seinfeld fan. But for those that don't know him, he's Seinfeld's agent and he was a producer on Seinfeld. And he actually was just on the Conan show last week. I don't know if you saw this, but Conan, there was a thing where Conan was saying that he was Dr. Fauci and he was playing along with it because he kind of looks like him a little
Oh
bit.
wow, yeah, he
Yeah,
actually
and he's
does.
like, exactly. So he was like, Conan, I'm not actually Dr. Fauci. And he has this like New York accent, but he was adorable because he was just like, I just looked at him. He's like this little old man. He's so successful. He's, a bajillionaire. And he's just, again, very modest, very humble. And you just want to take him and put him in your pocket because he is just so happy and full of energy. And I asked him because, the what I was covering was a Bronx documentary about him. You can actually watch that on HBO. And I asked him if he was a Yankee fan just because he's from the Bronx. And he was like, that is the best question anyone's ever asked me. And I'm like, what? I don't understand why. But he's not a Yankee fan. He's actually a Dodgers fan. And I can't remember why exactly he said that, but it was just funny to hear that.
The Dodgers used to play in Brooklyn. I guess with his age, he must have grown up on
You're
the
so
Dodgers.
right. You are so right. That just shows that I am such a dummy when it comes to sports. You are so right.
Nah, no worries. It's funny that he responded just like that because as an interviewer, and I think that you can probably relate, the best reaction is when their eyes open and you hit them with something that they're not used to.
Oh my gosh, agreed. It is the best feeling. I totally
That's
agree.
the best feeling. Yeah, because I take pride in the research that I do on people and the questions that I do ask, and people have been very appreciative of me looking them up like that because, I've had a ton of people and they're just like, oh, thank you so much. Everyone is always the same one. It's always the same questions. How do you prepare for an interview as far as questioning?
I mean, I just do like two separate sets of research. One, if it's a movie, I always make sure to watch the movie. You should always ask for screeners if you're covering a film, just because you definitely don't sound great if you don't know what the film is about, or if you don't know anything about that person's character, or even, about the director or whatever. Because it's nice to be able to say to them, I loved in the movie when you did X, Y, Z. And then I just research the person so I can sort of see where they're from and if I have any sort of personal connections or anything that I can talk about. Because like you said, it's, you gotta sort of, depending on what you're doing, you gotta ask some of the sort of standard questions, but if you have the time, it's so nice to be able to ask them something that is different and something that really excites them because you know about that. Or again, talk about something that they did in the particular film, movie, or play.
One thing when I approach people and I interview them, there's always that conversation before it, and I'm just going over my notes, and then you just notice certain quirks about that person, or you're just like, oh man, I didn't expect this person to be like that. Can you look back at all your interviews and maybe think of what the strangest personality quirk that you've noticed in somebody?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of them are not they're not the way you'd think they would be, I guess. Like Joe Pantoliano, I thought he would be so out of the box. I thought he'd be so animated. And he played Ralphie on The Sopranos, and he's the original, I forget his name in Bad Boys, but he's the one that said "Woosah." That's how most people know him.
Oh, Captain Howard. I love that guy.
Exactly.
God,
yeah.
I'd love to. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, because he's such a weird guy.
Well, that's the thing. I think I expected him to be larger than life, and he was very reserved, very quiet, very, very polite and very sweet, just not at all what I expected. I thought he was going to be just but I mean, it was for a play. And then when I was interviewing the rest of the cast, they were like, oh yeah, Joey Pants, he makes us laugh all day. So I think it just must be, he is funny and he is larger than life. But when the camera goes on and he's himself, I think he just really pulled it together. So,
right.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why Bill Pullman was looking at you like you were crazy on the red carpet?
Oh my gosh. I actually can't even remember. I think we were actually talking about The Sinner because I really liked that show. And I probably was acting out a part in The Sinner, and he was like, who is this girl?
Yeah, he was one of my favorite cinematic presidents of all time.
Oh, wait, what movie was that? I don't remember.
He did Independence Day.
Oh, duh, that's right.
That speech that he gave was just amazing, and it ramps me up even if I watch it today.
That was good writing. That was a great movie. I will say he is a lot more handsome in person, than he is on screen. I think I even said that to him, and I had myself saying it. I think I just kind of shoved that away in the files, but I was like, wow, you are really handsome. And he's like, thank you. I was like, yep, anyway, moving on.
No, but you do have the guts to say that to people. You also had the guts to ask Antonio Banderas to serenade you.
Oh, yeah, I had to. I love him. He's so hot. And his voice in Evita was so amazing that I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose right now. When am I going to get this shot again? So here goes nothing. And he laughed, thank God. If he didn't laugh, I would die later. But he did, so exactly. It was fine.
So sometimes you can't secure the interviews that people are clamoring for, and you do have these interviews come in, but then you get people walking by. Can you tell me about the most surprising cameo in an interview?
Oh, people walking by. Yeah. I was thinking about when I was doing the New York Film Critics Circle, I was interviewing the Safdie brothers, and Reese Witherspoon walked by, and they were just like, "Oh, hey Reese, what's up?" And she's like, "Oh, hey guys," and I was like, "Oh yeah, what's up, Reese Witherspoon?" That's cool. So that was pretty funny to me. They were just like so casual. I was like, "Okay, that's cool."
It's funny you mentioned them. Is the Safdie sandwich your favorite sandwich?
Oh, that was great. I was a huge fan, and I still am, obviously, of Uncut Gems. So to be able to interview both of them, because I was also at the Uncut Gems premiere in New York City, but I was with my reporter, so I was his producer, and he got to interview them. I was so jealous. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could talk to them. And then when I actually had the chance to, and I had them both on either side of me, I was just so happy. I was so excited. I could not contain myself.
Yeah, Uncut Gems they got gypped.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. I was watching, like, just waiting for that movie to be called.
Yeah,
Um,
that was horrible. I cannot believe that. But, Adam Sandler he's like, all right, I'll just take my $400 million and shove it. No problem.
yeah, he's fine with it. I'm sure he's doing good.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about New York for a second because a lot of people haven't been there, and I grew up in
Yeah.
New Jersey, so I go to the city all the time. My favorite slice of pizza is from Joe's in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Now, not only where's your favorite slice of pizza, but pizza is just synonymous with New York. But what is the one thing that people might not associate with New York that you find, food wise, and where would that be?
Well, my favorite pizza place is probably it's coincidentally Detroit style. So it's not actually your typical New York pizza, but this place Emmy Squared is what it's called. And it's only in New York, I believe, but it's so good. I get this pizza and it has pepperoni, jalapenos, and this stuff called Mike's Hot Honey on it. It's so good.
Hot honey.
Um, yeah, oh my gosh. You can actually get Mike's Hot Honey on Amazon. I highly recommend it and putting it on everything. It's so good.
Everything.
But no, it really is. But I don't know. I think that, New York is obviously well known for all of its cuisines. And I think that what's so cool about it is that New York it's a melting pot. So you actually can get authentic everything in New York City.
That's the
So if you
best
are
part.
looking for something authentic, you can get it there. Even though you are not in India, you can absolutely get authentic Indian food, or even Lebanese food. I'm Lebanese. You can definitely get authentic Lebanese. So I think that's what's really cool about it that people might not expect.
So now back to the pandemic. It shut down productions all across the globe, and
hmm
people can't do live shows. They can't do talk shows. You're doing your podcast through Zoom. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm doing my podcast through Zoom because I like to do video interviews. I like to post some of the video. And like I said, some of the audio is not amazing just because it cuts out sometimes, but people are very forgiving, especially in these times. So, and if the content is there, people will power through.
Right. Now, what do you think the future looks like as far as big time productions,
Mhm.
movie filming, TV filming? What does it look like to you with this pandemic and how maybe people might come out of this more of a germaphobe than they already are?
Yeah, I mean, hands down, we're going to come out of this, but in my opinion, it's going to be completely different. And, you know, I think that studios are going to be really limited on where they can film and where they can shoot. So something that, you were planning to shoot in Italy, I don't think that'll be happening for a while, or even New York City, I don't think they'll be shooting things there for a while. What makes me a little nervous is, I'm really excited for summer and everyone says it's going to be, a little bit better by summer. Things are going to calm down. Maybe, hopefully there'll be some red carpets, but I don't like hearing that, it could potentially come back with a vengeance in the fall. That makes me super nervous. Especially if they're, we're going to be doing red carpets again and there's going to be premieres and groups of people. That makes me nervous. But yeah, I think things are clearly going to be extremely different. And, like Broadway, for example. We don't even know when Broadway's coming back. I mean, Broadway, for all we know, could be canceled for the 2020 season, because what I've read is that it might not come back till Labor Day. So, they canceled the Tonys. It's just crazy. I think that, yeah, we can just take it day by day and see what happens, and see what steps, I guess, that the government's taking and the medical professionals are taking to get a vaccine. And again, I'm not a doctor. This is all my opinion, but and just, again, take it day by day.
Yeah. Do you think it's gonna cause reluctance in actors, commitment to a certain movie, and that otherwise in any other circumstance they'd love to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it'll just depend on when maybe the movie is set to shoot and where it's supposed to take place. I mean, if it's out in a remote location in maybe Buffalo, New York, and everybody's been quarantined for a month and they have, strict, I don't know. I think it's all going to depend.
Yeah, it's gonna be I think it's gonna be definitely a defining, few months in our country, in our country's history. This is something that my kid, she told me, this is my 9/11. She's like, not as far as tragedy, but this is the thing in my generation that people are going to read about in the textbooks.
Right. How old's your daughter?
She's 11.
Okay, so she kind of gets it. She's like, okay, this is not cool.
This is not cool.
This doesn't happen.
Yeah, having dad as a teacher is definitely not cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a parent teacher conference the first day. It was very reflective.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. I was going to say, I feel like you are a great person, but I cannot imagine having to actually do real math and
the math that she was doing. I'm sitting there like, when the hell did I learn this, and when are you going to use it in life?
Oh my gosh, I've heard the same thing from so many parents of 9 to 13-year-olds. Like, what kind of math is this?
Let's talk about your contribution to Newsmax.
Yeah.
You obviously got, I'm sorry, I can't find the word. You obviously got noticed enough that you are now contributing, as far as entertainment goes, to Newsmax. Talk about how you got that job and how they've received you when you walked in.
Yeah, so I started, I think my first appearance on Newsmax was in January, and it was for one of the lunchtime shows. And I was there to talk about the Grammys. And I have a website for myself. And I think it's been sort of kind of weird for me to juggle sort of promoting myself as a whole and my podcast, because, I did my podcast, again, so I could be known as, an entertainment contributor / expert. So this was the first thing that sort of where it really paid off, and it really helped me, because they said, we saw your podcast. This is Lauren of Red Carpet Rendezvous. Are you interested in coming on and talking about some entertainment stuff? So I was like, yeah, definitely. So I went on to talk about the Grammys, and that went really well. And it was actually me. And I said to them, if you'd like, I can do something like this once a week. And they said, okay, we'll let you know. And then they kind of said, we'd love for you to do that. And they were cool enough to start playing some of my interview spots as well. So whatever event I would cover, or whatever movie or show, they would play 30 seconds of an interview, which was great for me as well. So
definitely,
it gave me
more eyes on stuff.
Yeah, and it really helped me just gain the experience of live television. And it's scary, man. I'm confident, but I was like, oh my gosh, how did I just flub up that word?
Now that it's funny. Before I asked this question, I almost caught myself. I was going to say, now that you're making it in New York, but it takes me back. It's taking me back to an interview that you did with Dominique Jackson. Dominique Jackson was in Pose. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, she was in Pose.
Yeah.
Now, when you said, when you told her, you made it, she said, we haven't made it. We're only accomplishing stuff. Now, I found that to be one of the most interesting sound bites that, that you had in your interviews. How do you feel about that statement? We haven't made it. We're just accomplishing. And the key is to keep accomplishing.
Yes, when she said that, I'm like, this is so true because I'm sitting here like, you've made it. Like, you are on this amazing show. Look at you. You're a presenter at, a huge award show right now. Like, and I wanted to give her props, because I think she's made it. And she made such a good call where she's like, no, we've never made it. We just have to keep going. And that's definitely how I feel. It's funny, like you say that, but I'm sitting here, in New Hampshire right now, and it does not feel like I've made it. Like,
That being
not at
said,
all.
that being said, what's the next goal for Lauren and Red Carpet Rendezvous?
Well, the pandemic is a setback. So the show that I was on for Newsmax right now, it's just a Facebook Live show, and it's a weekend show, and it plays at an ungodly hour of like, I don't know, something like 1 a.m. So while it's not ideal, apparently it's supposed to go back to normal after the pandemic. So I'm really hoping that goes back to normal. And if not, like I said, I'm just going to keep pushing on to be an entertainment contributor where I can. And I'll just keep putting up the podcast, and hopefully, Apple catches the algorithm again at some point. Maybe they'll highlight celebrity interviews or maybe I'll start covering some of the Tribeca Film Festival films online and see if that will sort of be trending. I guess, we'll have to see. I'm just going to keep going. That's all I'm going to do is keep going.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Like, all the on-camera stuff is out the window, and I have a few interviews in the bank to release, but it's all podcasts from now on here until everything gets up. And so besides like covering stuff and being on the red carpet, it's so cool that you're always on the red carpet, by the way. But besides all the Hollywood stuff and all the Broadway stuff, what do you miss the most that you can't do right now?
Oh my gosh, so much. First of all, I miss getting dressed. I actually put jeans on today for the first time since like March 15th just to see if they fit, and they do, thank God. But yeah, I miss getting dressed. I miss my daughter being at school. And I miss the excitement of going to pick her up and looking forward to seeing her. If that makes sense. And
that actually does make a lot of sense.
It does, right? Like, and my son had just started, he's 18 months. He had just started this preschool alternative that he loved. It was like 2 days a week for 2 hours, but he was so happy there. And it was really nice because I would drop him, I would bring my computer, I'd like work out, and then I'd do some work. And it was just, I had a nice schedule going. And I was eating well, and that's kind of all down the drain right now. So I miss all of that. And like I said, I miss the city. I miss Central Park, and I miss just, walking outside to grab coffee, not having to get in the car and get my cardio in for the day by putting the kids in the car seats because they're like, what are these contraptions? We don't know what these are. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I miss going to movie theaters. Oh my goodness.
Oh geez, oh man, I so miss that. Can you tell us who George Whipple is and those amazing eyebrows that he has?
Oh yeah, so George is who I was referring to when I said that I worked for an entertainment reporter. I was his producer. Yeah, that was George. He is completely iconic. It's funny because we talk about George. He is the most famous person that you've never heard of is sort of what I always say and my brother always says because he's very New York famous, which it's a thing. I mean, if you Google some of his stuff that we put on YouTube, he had a show on New York One for years and it was called Whipple's World and he covered all the red carpets. He is like the king of the red carpets. So he has people like Halle Berry and, Julia Roberts being like, hi, I'm Julia Roberts and you're watching Whipple's World. It's just such amazing stuff. And truthfully, I learned basically most of what I know from George and from his red carpet appearances. So I definitely owe a lot to him.
We're on the tail end of this interview. I want to thank you again for all your time. I really appreciate this. So I bought this book the other day, and it says it's called 3,000 Questions About Me, and these are just amazing questions. So now we're going to learn a little bit about Lauren, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you with 5 questions and see what happens.
Okay.
Who or what keeps you grounded?
I mean, I would say definitely God keeps me grounded. I'm a Christian, and if I didn't sort of have, prayer that I would be in a much worse off place.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Probably JC from NSYNC.
JC from NSYNC. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'll kick my own ass again for that one, but yeah.
What is your favorite chick flick or rom-com movie?
Oh, definitely like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. That's a good one.
Really?
Yeah, chick flick. Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
I love that one. Yeah.
Here's a funny one. If you know any, what is your favorite most random fact?
My favorite most random fact. Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know. What's your most random fact?
Geez, now you're hitting
I know, that's
a
a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Right?
I want to say that, oh man, I don't know. Yeah, that's definitely a put on the spot type of deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
my daughter picked this book up, and it's really good. It has a whole bunch of questions that it just makes you think, and it's good because in the pandemic you don't think at all now.
right.
So the last one
true.
that can probably be a lesson to everybody out there. How do you resolve conflict?
I'm really bad at resolving conflict because
Nice.
I tend to be the person that like walks away and is like, "Don't talk to me." But no, I would say that I take a minute and I cool off, so I don't react, I guess, in anger
That's
or so yeah.
Because definitely once you dive off the cliff, there's no net to save
Yeah,
you.
I take flight and I don't fight, if that
Take
makes sense.
flight.
Yeah, flight,
Miss
fight.
Lauren, where can they find you on social media?
So my handle is at Lauren_interviews. You can find me there. I'm also on Facebook, under Lauren Conlin or Red Carpet Rendezvous Podcast. And my podcast is on all the podcast outlets. And, I guess I should pretty much get a Twitter at some point, but I'm just too lazy for that. So, I'll get around to it.
No problem. That's Red Carpet Rendezvous, Miss Lauren Conlin. Thank you again so much.
Yeah.
This is D. You can find me at DNC Digital on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. More active on Instagram, so you can hit me up there. Make sure you guys follow. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel because I need the subscriptions. I enjoy doing these interviews and I enjoy doing them for you. So if you want to hear more good interviews, just subscribe, hit it with a like, comment, let me know what's up. This is D, and I'm out.